Good evening and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV, your go-to destination for in-depth conversations on politics, policy and governance. I am Shafi'u Suleiman. Tonight, as the federal government rolls out the drones to celebrate June 12, also known as Democracy Day, which encapsulates the nation's democratic experience that witnessed 26 years of unbroken democratic experience, a group, Take It Back movement, is about to go on with its planned June 12 protests across 20 states of the Federation. The group backed its proposed civil action, citing Amnesty International report, which says over 10,000 Nigerians lost their lives, with over 133 million people classified as multidimensionally poor and hundreds of thousands displaced under the Tinubu administration, as some of the bases behind their decision to take to the street. This is coming at a time the Tinubu government is also counting the gains of what it described as hard but necessary reforms aimed at setting the foundation of sustainable growth and development of the country. Now, to help us unpack these issues is a former Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Barrister Solomon Dalung. He joins us live from Jos, the Plateau State capital. Thank you for joining. Also in the studio is a public affairs analyst, Comrade Iliyasu Gadu. He also joins us to provide context and analysis to this very important topic. If Barrister Solomon Dalung is there, it's good to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Nigerians.
Right. Okay, June 12, to many, is very significant to Nigeria, going by the fact that, it was on this day in 1993 that Nigeria had an election that was considered the freest and the fairest in the history of this country. At the same time, it also signaled, because it now is considered Democracy Day, the 26 years of unbroken democratic rule in Nigeria. Why is the choice of this very important day for a nationwide protest? Let me start from there.
As Radley pointed out, on the 12th of June 1993, one of the most freest and fairest democratic experiments that culminated into the election of late MKO Abiola was annulled by the military. And since then, Nigeria had been living in denial until the Buhari administration acknowledged the significance of that annulment to the growth of Nigerian democracy. He owned up, apologized to the Abiola family, and then also conferred on Abiola posthumously the highest honor in the land. Now, the question is, why is June 12th the choice of a protest? There will be no day that is proper for protests in Nigeria more than June 12th, because that is the day that the hope of genuine democracy was annulled. And 26 years of civilian rule, because I don't subscribe to 26 years of unbroken democracy, because there is nothing democratic about the 26 years. But of course, 26 years of civilian rule
Barrister,
unleashed on...
If you said it's nothing democratic, some will wonder, looking at the fact that the nation has to go through periodic elections. At the same time, there were transitions. And then all of this happened, in an atmosphere of democratic freedom of expression, freedom of franchise by the citizens. And you call it undemocratic?
What are the credentials of democracy? The rule of law, freedom of association, freedom of speech, justice, transparency, credible elections. When you take these indices and X-ray them with the definition of democracy, you will discover that all of them failed. So the periodic elections is more or less periodic selection and declaration by INEC, because INEC will just declare that this person has won. And even when the results are inconsistent with their declaration, the INEC chairman will tell you, if you disagree with me, go to court. So there is nothing democratic about it, and I don't want us to waste too much time about it.
Including the election that brought your government in 2015?
Muhammadu Buhari's government.
Yes, which he served as a minister. Is it also not?
Yes. Measure the government with these indices, I tell you. It's not about whether I serve in the government and part of it. But use these indices that I've mentioned, enumerated them, and measure the government. If it passes the litmus test, you are free to call it democratic. All I said is to set a standard for you. So you use it as a benchmark to test every election. And then you form an opinion about it. But back to why the choice of June 12th. I don't mean June 12th this year should not be a day of celebration of democracy, or like Arali put it, Arali quoted it, civilian rule, but it should be a day of celebration of hunger, poverty, hardship, galloping inflation, and corruption. These are the things that have characterized this administration in the past 2 years. And Nigerians have never gone through it worse like what they are going through now. So the civil society groups, the human rights community, faith-based organizations, the activists, had all come up together to say, no, there is nothing to celebrate, but rather, let us present to the world the true situation of the country instead of pretending that we are celebrating. After all, a man that is hungry, how will he celebrate?
Okay. Now, taking a look at, some would wonder, because you seem to isolate the incumbent administration. All the fault lines you mentioned earlier are also, features of previous administrations. Some are beginning to wonder, why do, protesters, including people like you, continue to target the Tinubu administration? Why is he the consistent target of some of these protests? And what do they hope to achieve? Because we've had quite a number. We've had the end bad governance and others that haven't, produced any tangible result.
The Tinubu administration should interrogate itself, why will it be only Tinubu's administration that is facing this, rather than asking the civil society groups that are voicing out the grievances of the people. President Jonathan was very popular from 2011. But when he introduced anti-people's policies, his government was characterized by unprecedented protests. President Muhammadu Buhari's government seems to enjoy some leverage, because there were protests when we came into government from the Nigerian Labour Congress and trade union organization. They protested, but along the line, they couldn't sustain it. So as to why the civil society
towards the tail end
could not, as to why the civil society could not have protested under Buhari or isolating, no, there is no administration that has been isolated. The civil society has isolated Tinubu's policies, not his government. The policies of withdrawal of fuel subsidy, the increase of electricity tariff, the floating of the naira, the non-provision of a mechanism to deal with these harsh economic policies is what had isolated Tinubu's government, and that is why he's receiving these responses from the people. So all that the people are saying is that these your policies which you said, oh, you have no regret, are not people's oriented policies. They are anti-people's policies. People are dying. So, you know, the Tinubu's administration is like a blind man. Until you touch him, he will not know that you are seeing him. So I think the civil society needs to be celebrated as those who are informing the blind man that even though you do not see, don't think that people are not looking at you.
But is it that, you know, because some will say, even the administration admitted the fact that, yes, it has to take certain bold decisions. It is not also saying that it's all rosy. You know, people are going through difficulties. The government has accepted that and admitted that. But did say that this is the route that the nation has to take if it wants to sustain, you know, I mean, it can be, if we want to be sustainable in its economic growth trajectory. Living a pretense, I mean, living a fake life of abundance in the midst of, you know, want would not help the country. So they have to take certain bold decisions, including removal of subsidy, which many believe has been, you know, a cycle or a cesspool of corruption. So, but why? I mean, the consistent. I mean, you said you have to touch the government to know that something is happening. You've been doing this, and the government has been responding, but insisting that yes, we agreed, things are difficult, but this is the route we have to take.
The government cannot convince anybody, because this route they have been singing. Nigerians have followed that route before, and it produced no good or tangible results. The Structural Adjustment Program of 1986 was exactly what this government is implementing. So we have followed this route, and it yielded any positive results. Therefore, there is no need convincing us that we'll go through it again and it will be better. It is not even a courageous decision. It is not. It's a decision of cowardice. Because if it were a courageous decision, it would have been subjected to public scrutiny. It would have been subjected to public participation. The SARB of 1986 was debated by Nigerians. Even though Nigerians rejected it, the military smuggled it through the back door. So you cannot present yourself as courageous when you were afraid of presenting your policies to be tested. And like I kept emphasizing, there was no government when this policy was introduced. In no sane society could that be done. A president with a vice president sworn in will announce a policy. There was no government. There were no advisors who tested that particular policy? Was it debated by Nigerians? If Nigerians has participated in debating the policy, they would have realized that, okay, we are going to face this type of hardship. But you cannot ambush the people with a surprise and come back and beat your chest and say, oh, you're a courageous man. No, you're a coward.
But then...
so to me,
Barrister,
I don't see that as the best. But yes, if that was the only option open to Nigerians, so it is only open for the government to withdraw the subsidy. The government has no shock absorber policies that could cushion the effect. When SAB was introduced in 1986, the military introduced shock absorber policies that absorb and cushion the effect of the policies. What are the shock absorber alternatives of this government? Why will you, without an alternative to cushion the effect of pains, and you kept asking Nigerians to sacrifice, why there is no evidence of sacrifice on the side of people in government? How do we believe you?
Barrister, you talked about public participation, because what the government keeps saying is that you in the opposition, especially people like you who have been consistent in criticizing the government, have failed, in providing alternatives. Is protest the only language the government understands? Because part of the lineup of its celebration of the June 12th is also a public lecture. What stops people like you and quite a number of those who disagree with the position of the government to be part of that conversation, a national conversation, public interaction, to suggest and to bring some of the antidotes to address the gaps, rather than just being on the street all the time?
I think, to be very fair to critics of the government, we have offered numerous alternatives which the government did not even hearken to. We have suggested a review of the policy. I mean, if you test a policy for 1 year and the response, the response stimulus from the people indicated resentment, there is a need for you to review the policy. Has government reviewed the policy? No. We have also offered to government that subsidy is an indispensable aspect of contemporary societies. There is no society in the world that does not subsidize one thing or the other. So if you are not subsidizing petrol, which has a cost implication on the economy, what are you subsidizing? We have offered that. I have offered a suggestion of also engagement of the young people. I've been repeating this to government severally on so many fora. Please engage the young people in a summit where some of these your so-called beautiful ideas of what is happening, explain it to them. Select young people all over the country and bring them together. Abacha did it. That was one of the things that helped even stabilize Abacha's government. But have they listened to it? We have suggested even how to deal with security. Security issues are not of the populist space. We have suggested it. None of these things have been taken. All they say is, the critics have not given this in. They are good at singing. The critics have not. We have workable alternatives. Has the government, now let me put it back to you, has the government ever assembled those critics and said, in a room, come, even the so-called lecture, do they have invitation for any of us? None of us is invited. So if the government was smart enough, they could have gathered the critics now and said, okay, now that you have been criticizing us, come and tell us what we should do differently. Have they done that? So they lack the locus to stand on a pedestal of their folly to accuse those who are patriots trying to draw the attention to national issues.
But Barrister, you talked about an engagement, especially of the youth. And it seems the government is also listening. It's having a listening ear. It is coming up with a National Youth Summit. Is it not in that direction? And again, you talked about the need to have the shock absorbers. And the government keeps saying that we're pumping money into student loan, into compressed natural gas. We're supporting, vulnerable households and all of that. Isn't that enough, perhaps, to say, okay, the government is also doing something to ameliorate the hardship Nigerians are facing?
After 2 years of this supposed shock absorber mechanism, what are the results? What are the indices of performance? The student loan, about 80 billion was released. Only 26 billion met the universities. About 50-something billion is unaccountable. So the student loan is a behalf of corruption, which is one of the reasons why we are going out on the street tomorrow. The compressed or the CNG. How many CNG outlets do we have in the north in 2 years? Let's take the northern. It's only in Abuja and either in Kano or Kaduna. How difficult is it to acquire this? And if it has taken them 2 years just to be able to have 3 or 4 outlets in 19 northern states, how many years will it take them to be able to touch the impact of the common people? And then some of the disbursement they claim to households. Of course, that was started under Buhari. And it is undeniable that it is a conduit of monumental corruption. No wonder the Minister of Humanitarian and Poverty Creation, who was suspended, in less than 6 months, she was being investigated of being unable to account for 72 billion. So let us be a bit realistic. These mechanisms are just to oil the pockets of those supporters of the government, but they do not sincerely meant to reach the common people. Let me give an example with what Shagari did. I even suggested this. Shagari had the National Supplies Company, where, essential goods were imported into the country, and these were shared to the states. They had even local government offices. Credible Nigerians were selected and entrusted with the distribution. And you could find rice in a rural area and purchase it. Today, 2 years into this administration, all we are hearing is huge figures being rolled out as disbursement made to households. And some of the names mentioned, you cannot even identify a family in the whole of your local government that has such name.
Right. Okay.
So again, that is another conduit of corruption.
Right, but Barrister, before we let you go, because we have to wrap up on this segment, we have also another conversation. Nigerians would like to know whether you will lead, tomorrow's protest. That's one. And then two, what have you done in terms of reflecting on the previous outings? Because as we speak, quite a number of children have lost their parents to that protest. Women have been made widows. Quite a number of some of these protesters perhaps are still also in custody, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know whether all of them have been freed. Have you reflected on the outcome of the previous exercise? Please, very quickly, I want you to answer this question, perhaps in less than a minute. I don't know.
Well, whether I will be leading tomorrow's or participating in tomorrow's demonstration, there is no military general that will invite his enemy to inspect his armory before he will declare war the following day. That will be my response to them. Yes, we have reflected on all, but there is no success without sacrifice. The fruit of liberation is watered by blood. So many people died in South Africa. They sacrificed their lives for freedom. So freedom is not a teacup conference. It is gotten by sacrifice. And that is all that we need to know. So definitely, people have lost their lives. We've commensurated with their families. And we also have blamed the government for being irresponsible. But that will not stop us until the government change. If the government has not changed on unleashing pains on Nigerians, protests will not stop.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Barrister Solomon Dalung. No going back. Okay. Nigerians have resonated with this, and I'm sure they also listen. We pray for success of this exercise and a hitch-free exercise for that matter. Thank you very much once again for talking to us on Daily Politics. We appreciate.
Yeah, it's a peaceful protest. That's we must ensure, as we promised, to make it as peaceful as possible. But you should also send the message to the government that they should also conduct themselves peacefully, because they have always been responsible for introducing violence by coming to shoot innocent citizens who are carrying placards.
Right, okay. I'm sure they must have decoded the message. Thank you very much once again. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Right. Okay, back in the studio, just like I said, we have Comrade Iliyasu Gadu, a public affairs analyst who has also joined us to analyze some of these issues. Very straight to the point now. You've listened to Barrister Solomon Dalung.
Yes.
About the concept, about the reasons, the rationale behind this. Do you subscribe to some of the reasons behind this? Coming at the time, the government is also saying, hey, tarry a while, exercise a little bit more patience. We're getting there. We're getting to the El Dorado.
Well, I think we have to understand that, June 12th, the history, the trajectory of June 12th, it's a trajectory of struggle, peaceful democratic struggle for, first of all, the restoration of the election that broke the threshold of politics in Nigeria. It has several dimensions to it.
Yeah.
It's not just about the freest and fairest, annulment of the freest and fairest elections, but also the election that broke for the first time the bogey of religion, ethnicity, and all that. And why Nigerians are very unhappy, were very unhappy at the time for its annulment, was because it showed us the way. It would have helped us to resolve some of the issues that today we are facing. And for that to have happened, Nigerians went to protest. And as a result of that protest, the democratic movement, which actually many prominent members of this government,
including the president,
were beneficiaries of.
We're also part of.
And beneficiaries. Make that point. Beneficiaries. Because it says, okay, they were part of the struggle, and they were also beneficiaries. And that's where they are today is as a result of the June 12th, which was a nationwide exercise. Yeah. And I do not see any reason why, having benefited from the exercise, from the June 12th exercise, the government, virtually everybody that is a part of this government and the democratic institutions that we practice today and we have erected today, were actually part of the offshoot of the June 12th democratic struggle. Of course, some of them have been there, but they were given the impetus by the June 12th struggle. So I don't really see any reason why the government that itself claims to have been claim to have been a beneficiary and a strong and part of the fight to restore democracy should be apprehensive, should be nervous about people of Nigeria reminding us of the fact that some of the elements of the annulment, some of the things that happened are still with us. And we want to ensure that no government, forgets the struggle, the democratic struggle. Democratic struggle is not just about elections. It's also about the rights of human beings, the rights of people. And the people who want to demonstrate tomorrow are people who are doing that under sections 39 and 40 of the Constitution.
Right.
And it's guaranteed by Constitution 1999 as amended.
Right.
So there is no reason why that should cause apprehension in the government and the security forces.
Yeah, I'm sure you're talking in line with one of the three cardinal reasons behind this protest. Because the organizers said they are, commemorating whether they are worried about three key elements. They talked about hunger, they talked about insecurity, and then they talk about a shrinking public space. So if I understand, you're talking about the need to have these democratic principles of freedom of association, freedom to ventilate, peacefully and all of that.
Yes. In fact, the government should even help encourage the demonstrators, because you cannot have democracy in an atmosphere of, repression. That's no democracy. People have a right to ventilate their opinions about what's happening in their country. It is why we have democracy today. Right. Even in the darkest military regimes we've had, such protests took place. And let's not forget, some of the people who are part and parcel of this administration had taken part in demonstrations in this country.
Have led demonstrations.
Not just taking part, but led demonstrations on good causes. Economic causes,
including the subsidy removal.
President Tinubu, in fact, was one of the inspirations behind some of the demonstrations that took place during the administration of President Goodluck. Now, for the same regime, or rather administration, to come out and say, "Look, hang on, don't come out in protest," it's a betrayal of that same democratic spirit that brought us to where we are today.
But shouldn't the government also be cautious or be worried about the level of destruction we've seen that went with the previous exercise? Take for instance the end bad governance protests. Billions of naira, in property, we lost human lives. We are lost. People went berserk and stealing spree and all of that. Shouldn't the government be worried?
Yeah, the government and everybody else has to be worried. Even the demonstrators have to be worried, because some of them might be targets of agent provocateurs sent into the protests by government. It has happened before in this country. But that's not to say that there's a compelling reason by government to stop the people from ventilating their. Because the whole thing about June 12 is about democracy, about freedom of choice, about freedom of expression, about people's rights to ventilate their anger or their opinions about what's happening. And I will refer you to a survey by the Guardian newspaper. About over 80% of Nigerians are not happy with the policies of this government. That itself is a cause for people to come out. And June 12 of all days is a day of rage, positive rage against policies of government. This government must not assume that what it has done or what it's doing is in the best interest of the country, because it did not even, as Barrister Solomon Dalung said, it did not take the people into consideration when it was doing these policies. And these policies are things that have now had a deleterious effect on the people. So people have to ventilate their opinions and to let the government know, you need to tweak this policy, review it, so that we can have a better impact on the people.
Yeah, but is it all bad? Because at the same time, Nigerians are lamenting. Some would say that, okay, there is also some substantial progress that has been made, either by this administration or by the previous administration. For instance, the Tinubu administration, or the president himself, was a while ago, commissioning quite a number of projects, infrastructure projects that have been, completed. And this is done, with the taxpayers' money, with perhaps some of those monies that were saved, for development. And again, the government has also been saying, okay, let's come together. Nation building it's not just about the government in power, it's about the citizens' participation. And then it is coming up with a conference, so to speak, a public conference, public lecture to address some of these concerns.
Yeah, but the tenor of this government has been, we know it all. Look at the subsidy withdrawal. Look at the various economic reforms. I mean, the policies, undergirding the economic reforms have been done without taking the people into consideration. And Barr has said it. Dalung has said it, that in the past, even the military saw the need to have it.
Even though they didn't work on it.
Yeah, but they saw the need to have a discussion with the people. We are going to introduce some structural adjustment policy. I was in Lagos then, I was working in Lagos then, and I knew the whole country was agog because there was quite a lot of discussions all around the country, sectors of the country, industrialists, civil society groups, and there was debate, open debates on whether there was a need to introduce the structural adjustment policy or not. And at the end of the day,
not even long distance term, even the Jonathan administration, when it removed subsidy, I think there was also quite a number of avenues towards public engagement. The National Assembly debated it and all of that.
But this government assumes that it knows it all, and it has closed all avenues for discussions for alternative views.
Isn't it realizing now? Because just recently, the government, the spokespersons of the government, were out to say, okay, you've been bashing us all the time. Opposition figures, whoever is saying that, thinking that we're not doing the right thing, provide alternative solutions to some of these problems. Are they also beginning to realize that there is need to carry the people along?
Yeah, well, they've said that something similar to that several times, but we have not seen any attempt or any inkling towards engaging with the people. The government keeps saying, well, you just have to take it, or we need more. Statements emanating from the president and some of his advisors keep saying, we need to go on, and the president even keeps saying, it has been a bold and courageous decision. Now,
isn't it? Other
governments in the past, no government in the world,
summoned the courage to do it.
No government in the world, it has been happening since 1986. Was it how President Babangida introduced his? No government in the world would pass off hunger, insecurity, poverty as bold and courageous decisions. Governments in the world would rather say, look, we are going to do as much as possible to provide a cushion and do these economic policies with the people in mind. In the first place, these economic policies were introduced surreptitiously as an ambush. It's like you are afraid of your people. It's like you want to put your people in hardship, so you do not even have the courage to face them and talk to them and say, look, this is it, and we're going to go along this path together.
But isn't it what pushed the country into where it is today? For instance, they said, if this has been done before now, the Tinubu administration shouldn't have been bothered with removing subsidy. If previous administration had the guts and had the courage to remove it, perhaps that's not what we'll be talking about today. So, and again, they keep pumping, rather trying to appease, trying to be populist in their approach to the issues, paying subsidies in huge public taxpayers' money, just to sustain what they call a fake life.
No, I think the government is not sincere about it. They knew who were the scroungers on the tax, on the subsidy. Subsidy has three dimensions. It's about waste, it's about freeloaders, it's about inefficiency. Now you dispense with only one aspect of it, which is the waste. The freeloaders, whom you know, whom you have evidence of their freeloading and their economic sabotage, you did not take into account. You did not take them, hold them into judgment. Right. Now you let them to go free. In fact, some of them return back in several ways to be able to freeload again.
To take advantage of what has been freed.
What has been freed. So again, you also did not, provide us with what you have done so far with the subsidies. You keep borrowing more and more. You told us the subsidies was to deploy to education, to health, and other areas.
Isn't it being deployed? We were talking about student loans earlier. We're talking about...
The barristers talked about it. I mean, we don't need to... Look, there's no need about being no need about sophistry about it. What's right is right, what's wrong is
But
wrong.
we're seeing massive investment in infrastructure, for instance. For the first time, we're having a super highway that is gulping trillions of naira. And that's substantially, many believe is the right way to go, because that is the way you can, be able to stimulate, economic activities.
Look at how much the cost of that infrastructure, and compared to what similar infrastructures in other countries is there. It's criminal. It's stupendously criminal to spend that much amount of money without proper appropriation, without even.
What do you mean? What do you mean by? How do you mean by? The National Assembly is there and it okays it.
Let them show how they arrived at that, and were there any procedures of procurement done for that humongous amount of money? That amount of money is the amount of money some countries, a group of countries in Africa and elsewhere, are going to use for their yearly budget. You are deploying that project without necessary procedures in procurement and in bidding, by the way, such a project, and you are telling us that it's an infrastructure project that is going to go about 13 trillion.
Covering quite a number of states and linking, the north and south.
Yeah, but
isn't that strategic?
But the question you have to ask yourself: what is compelling about that project that you have to circumvent the public procedure, procurement process?
Are you insinuating that it might be self-serving? Is that what you're saying?
But it's all there. If it quacks like a dog, talks like a dog, and walks like a dog, it's a dog. There is no project in this country of that magnitude that has not gone through the proper procedures.
Well, we'll digress a little bit. Let's come back to the subject matter. We're talking about protests, in June 12, which is a significant day in Nigeria's democratic history. Some will wonder, why will Nigerians always identify with the negatives? It's a time, for Nigerians to commemorate, to be happy for at least 26 years of unbroken democracy, to reflect back and see where we've gotten it right and where we need to improve. We're talking about democratic consolidation. Why should Nigerians, engage in protests rather than coming together perhaps to commemorate?
But June 12 is not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. It has always been a positive thing in the country. And that is why Nigerians said, for that positive development, we have to come out and make sure that the people who annulled that election, it's not just the election that was annulled, but the future of many Nigerians. Because if we had allowed that election to have been announced, and we had taken that step, that trajectory, by now some of the things we're talking about today, we will not be talking about them. Then we would have now reinstated good governance, governance that was elected by the people and then beholden to the people. But by annulling the June 12th, we annulled a lot of things. We didn't just annul a free and fair election, we annulled a process that would have sustained us through in the democratic process, and that would have given us the right to say, look, tomorrow we are going to change this or change that. All the negatives we've had in our election, in our civil society and all that, would have at least petered out by now. We wouldn't be talking about, we would have governments that will be responsible for us. But today, what we have a government that think that they owe us, they don't owe us anything, and they can always annul even some of the things that we believe we should have.
Isn't the people, those that participated in that also shown remorse, for instance? Even the president, the head of state, and former head of state Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida recently acknowledged the fact that late Abiola won the election, but he talked about the circumstances that led to the annulment. He also some sort of apologized to Nigerians in a way. President Muhammadu Buhari recognized this victory, awarded posthumously the highest honor of the land to late MKO Abiola. Some national edifice, named after him, Isn't this enough to say, okay, let's move on? At least something has been done in terms of reconciliation. We're wrong, but then we understand that we're wrong, and then we need to forge ahead.
But first of all, let me even say that the declaration by General Ibrahim Babangida, who annulled the election, as you know, and as everybody knows, has left more questions than answers, because the manner of his response, did not provide the necessary light that Nigerians have been expecting. He merely shifted the blame to some certain actors that acted along with him, which has not satisfied Nigerians, because it shows that, look, there are wheels within wheels in that annulment, and that has to be answered, which has not been satisfactorily answered. In fact, it added more questions to the June 12 annulment than possible. People have asked questions. Okay, so was it that individual, General Abacha, alone that annulled the elections? Come on. That is tales by moonlight.
And why now that there is no
Why now that he's not alive? So let's not go there, because if General Ibrahim Babangida is trying to assuage his conscience, he has not done enough. And you go there and ask Nigerians, and they'll tell you his conscience has not been assuaged. I mean, the answers regarding who and how June 12 was annulled has not been answered. Then the issue of whether we should just sit down at home. No, because as I said earlier on, some of June 12 was not just annulment of free and fair elections. It is also annulment of the rights of Nigerians. And some subsequent governments have come to take it as a matter of right to deny Nigerians their right to protest against things. This is why some of the young Nigerians are saying, look, we are going to come out, we are going to let the people know that on a similar occasion, though not on electoral basis, where our rights were denied, we came out and protested, and today we've had that done. Now we are talking about hunger, we're talking about insecurity, we're talking about massive corruption, we're talking about a lot of things, untoward things happening in this country, ironically by the beneficiaries of that same June 12. We need to remind them.
Right. Okay, now how do we get back to the path of the right trajectory, of our democratic experience? We are reflecting as a nation. We're looking back at the democratic return of democracy in 1999, for instance, 26 years before then we had democracy in the past. What do we need to do very quickly, perhaps, to retrieve our steps now, to be on the path of sustainable growth, democratic experience like any other developed nation? What do we need to do very quickly?
Democracy is a product of a culture of observance of rule of law, a culture of people agreeing to abide by the rules-based system. Now, when you have people saying there's no vacancy, when you have people saying, look, we doing all kinds of untoward things, you are restricting the democratic space, and you are denying the same June 12 that happened is also what's happening now, because you are denying the people the right to choose. If I say I don't want you based on the policies you have enacted, then you allow me to be able to make that choice based on my elections, not to come and tell me, no, there is no vacancy. That is anti-democratic. Or to sit down and enact laws that do not have the participation of people. This is not how it's done in other countries. If we want to imbibe democracy and make it take root, then we must allow all the institutions of democracy to flourish free without restraint.
How do we encourage citizens' participation? As we move towards the 2027 election, we have another opportunity perhaps to right the wrongs. What needs to be done citizens-wise? What should the citizens do?
Citizens must be vigilant. They must protect their rights. They must protect their votes. They must hold politicians accountable. Somebody should not sit down and determine that this is how he wants to do it. And at the end of the day, democracy is about the people. The people must feel that, look, when I go out tomorrow to cast my vote counts. It should not be somebody sitting down.
Democratic accountability.
Yes, somebody sitting down and tell you, we have declared this result at the wee hours of the morning, and then you say, when you protest, you say, go to court. No, yes, we'll go to court. It's part of the democratic process, but we have a right to contest and to interrogate how that process came about. And we must know that democratic political holders must not think of us as people who do not have their rights, and they must not, act with impunity.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Comrade Iliyasu Gadu, for also your informed perspectives. And viewers, that's a wrap on today's edition of Daily Politics. We do hope you find the conversation engaging. Join us tomorrow. We'll be back with another interesting topics and personalities. Perhaps it's also Democracy Day. We'll have quite a number of conversations lined up for your viewing delights. So join us tomorrow. We'll be back. Until then, my name is Shafi'u Suleiman. Thanks for being there.